Hello and welcome to Forecaster's basic Railcraft Signalling tutorial. In this first part I will be going through block signals and how they work. This is the tool, the block signal surveyor, used to connect block signals. And here we have your basic block signal, and as you can see it scans for tracks within 2 blocks of the block the signal occupies, regardless of its height above the ground. Here we have a basic setup. The signals are positioned right above the rail, and we connect them by right-clicking one with the surveyor and right-clicking the other, and the connection is valid because it detects the track, and the track is in a straight line between the signals. Here we have a similar setup with the signals shifted 1 block away from the track, and we do the same and they're connected. Connection is valid because the track is within the scanning range of both signals and it's a straight line. Here we have the signals at different heights, but the connection is still valid because the track is within the scanning range and it's a straight line. Here we have the signals at different distances from the track. Still works because the track is a straight line and it's within the scanning range of both signals. Here we have the track is within the scanning distance of both signals, but the track is not a straight line, so the signal block is not valid. And we cancel the surveying by right-clicking the first signal. In this setup, the track starts within the scanning range of this signal, but this signal is out of range, so the block will be invalid, and we cancel the surveying. But in this we have a track that is a straight line between the signals, and it's within the scanning range. That the track takes off in a different direction here does not matter. It could continue straight forward or go off in either direction. And that's it for the basic part of setting up a signal block. Now that we know how to pair the signals, we'll be taking a look at what they actually do. In this setup, I have 2 signal blocks, the closest one and the one further away, with 2 signals each. And as you can see, there's a cart sitting on the closest block, and its signals are showing red from both directions, and the far away block is empty and both signals are showing green. If we get this cart moving, we see that when the cart enters a block, the signal in the direction the cart is coming from shows yellow, and the signal in the direction it's going shows red. Red simply means that it's unsafe to enter the block from that direction, either because there's a cart coming in that direction or there's a cart standing still that it's something you will hit. Yellow means it's safe to enter, but there is a cart on the track moving away from you if you come from the yellow direction. And as you can see, green means the track is empty or the block is empty. Now, in addition to the regular block signal, we have the distance signal, which you can use a signal tuner to pair with a block signal, like so, and it will simply copy the output of the block signal and repeat it on itself. So as you can see, this is now paired with this, and when this block signal turns red, the distance signal will also turn red. If we pair it with this, when this block signal turns yellow, this will also turn yellow, and when it turns green, this turns green. And if that one would turn red, this distance signal will also turn red. Then we also have the dual head block signal, which is basically a block signal and a distance signal in one. So if we now have a block, and you see the upper lamp works like the block signal, but we can also use a signal tuner to pair the dual block signal with another block signal, and the lower lamp will work like the distance signal and simply copy the output of the block signal we paired it with and repeat it. So as you can see, as the right block signal turns yellow, the lower lamp will also turn yellow. Now we have this junction here and a switch motor, and we would like to use this block signal to control the switch. And the easiest way to do this is simply to use a signal tuner to pair a block signal directly to the switch motor. And the drawback of doing it this way is we can't control it. It will simply, when the block signal is red, the switch will be on. You can see the switch is enabled, and when the signal is green, the switch will be off. So we can see as the block signal turns red, the switch will be engaged. It will switch the track, and when it turns green, it will disable and allow the carts to pass straight forward. We can also pair it with the yellow one, and we will see that it does not change its state when the signal turns yellow. It will still be disengaged. Now we want to change how this switch reacts to the block signal. We then need the signal receiver box. We put it down next to the switch motor, and then we will pair it with the block signal. Now is also a good time to don the TrackMan's goggles, and we will set them to the tuning aura, and we will put them on our head. And you will now see this line of particles going from the signal block signal to the receiver box, showing that they are linked. And we now see that the signal box is reflecting the aspect of the block signal, and it will emit a redstone aspect when it's green currently. So if we get the cart going, we see when it's green now, it will emit a redstone signal which will switch the track. So it's currently the opposite of when we link the block signal to the switch motor directly. So when the track is clear, the switch will be engaged. Then we can change this. So it's when it's red, it'll engage, which is the same as when we linked the block signal to the switch motor directly. And then we can have it set to yellow, and we will link it to this block signal instead, and you will see the particles change. So when the signal turns yellow, it will switch. So we now have much greater control when it switches. And we can also select several aspects at once. We can select all the aspects at once if we want to, or none of them, which doesn't really serve a purpose. But there you go. Now, let's say we have two switches and another switch motor, and we want to control this as well with that very same block signal. But if we try to link them, it breaks the old connection. You see, these are no longer connected, and it creates a new connection over here. And now you see only this one switching and this one doing nothing. And if we try to switch them back, the same thing will happen in reverse. This connection is severed and then a new one is established, and this switches again, but the left one does not. And we cannot link two signal receivers together. That's what the signal controller box is for. When directly adjacent to a signal receiver, it will simply copy the aspect of the receiver and onto itself, and the signal controller box can be linked either to a switch motor directly or to a signal receiver box. So this will enable us to copy the aspect from this signal receiver and transmit it to this signal receiver. So now we have both switches switching. As you can see. And although they are set to different aspects, now they should be exactly the same. And you can keep this chain going for as long as you need to, as far as I'm aware. You can also connect multiple controller boxes to one receiver box and create a chain that way. Here is a basic application of signals and switches, where we have two signal blocks and a small diversion pocket. And if we put on the goggles, we see that this signal is connected to this receiver, and this signal is connected to this receiver, and both of these are set to red. So whenever one of these turns red, when this turns red, this switch will be thrown, which would divert this train coming from this direction into the pocket. And when this turns red, this switch will be thrown, which would divert this train to the pocket. But as you can see, as soon as the switch is cleared, the block is no longer occupied, and thus this train no longer gets diverted and is allowed to continue along the main track, while the diverted train is being held by this lockdown track, which is controlled by those two controller boxes, which are linked to these controller boxes. I meant these as receiver boxes. And both of these are also set to red. So when there's a train coming from either direction, which means that any of the tracks on this side of the switch, including the switch itself, are occupied. The diverted train will be held, but as soon as the switch is cleared, the train will be released and will be allowed to continue. And that's the basics of how switches and signals work, and a way to use them to avoid collisions. Have fun!